Welcome to Live at the League. I'm Emily Kelishewski, Assistant Director of Member Experience and Learning here at the League. A great show lined up for you today. Here's what we'll be covering. First, we've got Luke Forrest, Director of Engagement for the Community and Worker Economic Transition Office at the Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity. He's joining us to share details on the new Community Growth Academy and how it can help communities navigate economic transitions. We'll also have a legislative update from our state and federal affairs team. Dave Hodgkins and Jen Rigtrink are here with us, plus highlights from their recent travels across the state. And of course, we will end with some league reminders on convention registration, our new online learning platform, and an upcoming ADA accessibility webinar. If you're watching live, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat or in the Q&A box. We'll answer as many as we can throughout the show. Let's get right into it. First up, we've got a League alum and the Director of Engagement, Community and Worker Economic Transition Office at the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, Luke Forrest. Luke, first I have to say, it's great to have you here. It's great to see you.
Good to see you.
And we were mentioning, as it relates to your job title, that we'd really like to see how that all fits onto a business card. But to get into the real meat and potatoes of things, we're talking about the newly launched Community Growth Academy, which, as I understand it, is a program designed to help communities think strategically about their long-term economic future, especially those facing challenges like the loss of major employers or industries. So I'm really excited to get into this. Can you start by giving us an overview of this academy, what it is, who it's for, and why this initiative is so important right now?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I want to also thank Jen and Betsy for the invitation. For folks who don't recall, I was with the Municipal League for about 10 years, working on a lot of the placemaking initiatives. So there's really, a lot of common threads here I see coming through. You joke about the name. It's obviously, our office was created by the legislature. So it's, a name that only like a legislative committee could love. There's lots of words there,
Absolutely.
but I think I would distill it down to that transition. We call ourselves the transition office because it was recognized by the legislature and a lot of stakeholders, including the league, that because of changes with the energy utility picture and also the auto industry, that we have a lot of communities that are very reliant on those for the employee base, for the tax base, and that changes to those industries, global, national trends really put them at risk. So we have three core audiences. One is community leaders. So I thank all of you who joined here representing that group. The other two are the workforce, the labor piece of that, and then also the major employers. So this is really tackling the community vision piece of this. So like I said, it has some common threads with placemaking, but we're also trying to look at those. What does this mean for the workforce? What does this mean for the employers? So we're really trying to deliver two things. We're going to put together a playbook of strategies that communities can use to get ahead of changes and also react to those changes. And then this academy is really asking community leaders like yourself to put yourself forward and think about, would you like to help us out and also receive some benefits? How you'd be a little bit of a guinea pig to sort of reality check the strategies and the playbook that we're putting together, but there's also a number of benefits to participation that we can get into.
Yeah, I'm really interested to know, before we sort of get into the benefits of participation, how the program itself was developed. How did you create this Community Growth Academy?
Yeah, it's really responsive to community leaders like league members. So when this office was launched, I was not on the team yet, but when this office was launched in 2023, one of the first things the team did here at the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity was go out into the community, did about a dozen roundtables geographically spaced around the state to hear what are the needs, what are the gaps in all the programs that we have. How can we really add value? Because we all know we don't want to just create more state programs for the sake of having new acronyms. And this was one of the big things we heard was this need. There is no playbook. Those were exact words we heard from community stakeholders. And we said, well, why don't we create one? We know there are examples in other states. So so that was the main objective. We were lucky enough to get significant funding from the Balmer Group to support this work. So it's actually funded largely by non-state resources, which is somewhat unusual, I think, for a state agency program, which gives us some flexibility on things. But we also are obviously supporting it with our state time and other resources as well. So that was really the objective. That was really the main motivation, is how do we serve that need that we're hearing of the lack of a playbook. The academy was kind of something we created after the fact. Like, we can't test this simultaneously with all the hundreds of communities across the state. So we need to have kind of a smaller cohort. And that's what we're looking at up to 10 communities. And we're really asking people to define what community means to them. We want this to be, it could be a whole county level. It could be a multi-county, planning region. It could be a single city or village. Could even be a neighborhood organization, neighborhood level CDO or nonprofit organization within a larger city. So, any of those levels really works for us. We just want you to tell us why and make the case for what the needs are for the community and what the benefits could be.
So speaking of benefits, I'm sure participating has its own benefits. What would those be for folks who are interested in throwing their hat in the ring? And how is it structured to guide participants through this kind of planning?
Yeah, great question. So the first benefit is you get a strong network of peers, and you're getting dedicated attention from not only staff, but we have a team of expert consultants, contractors with experience across the country and economic development, community development, these kinds of challenges. So you're going to get hands-on help with what your strategy is, where it is now, maybe how do we take it to the next level. There also will be funding resources available to the communities to implement a project that they pick. So kind of like implementation grants is the way we're thinking of that now. Also, a big benefit is we're going to be working with CEDM, which has a track record of doing a fellowship program annually with MEDC. We're going to essentially mirror that program, and each of the communities will have the opportunity to have a full-time fellow who will be an employee of CEDM, which is a nonprofit organization paid for by the state, to essentially be your project manager, your implementer. And so that's a 15-month term that those folks are on the ground. So those are some of the tangible benefits. You're also getting the opportunity to kind of, like I said, reality check, learn from some of the best practices that are out there, kind of how do they apply, and you get to brag about yourself too, and what the cool things your community is doing.
Sure. So if you're thinking about who your ideal candidates are, who would you say should consider applying, and how does that selection process work?
So we have a pretty easy application that is on our website now. I think we can share the link here. I think the most important thing about knowing two things I would emphasize about the ideal candidate. One is we want this to be coalitional, meaning we don't want it to just be a single person like in your planning department or whatever who applies, or city manager's office who doesn't talk to others about this. We have a space in there where I'm basically asking you to tell us about your team, right? And that's what we want to see, is that you're potentially, anyone could be the lead organization, could be the nonprofit, community foundation, regional planning agency, economic development, city, village, county. That doesn't matter as much, although you will be obviously the fiduciary of any project work. But really, like, what is your team? Why are you straddling the boundaries of between nonprofit, government, business, and to sort of show us how you've got some buy-in. The other thing is we have a list of transition impacted communities based on like workforce and economic data. If you don't see your county or city's name on that, that does not mean you can't apply. It just means you have a couple extra questions you need to answer for us, of maybe why we missed something, what it is about your community that really needs this help and could use this help and can make the most of it. So I would say don't let that discourage you. But if you live near one of those, or if your city is near one of those counties, you're adjacent or something, maybe think about, is there a multi-county coalition or a regional agency that we could kind of lean on to be the lead? and come at it that way.
So I know you said that this is a new program. These folks we're looking at to be somewhat the guinea pigs to see
Mhm.
how it goes. I'm curious where you see this program growing or changing, or where you hope to get maybe a year down the line or a couple of years down the line.
Yeah, great question. A lot of these are time-tested strategies that we're
Hmm.
borrowing from other programs. There's like I mentioned, the placemaking work that the league did 15 years ago, has some elements to it. A lot of the work that MEDC has done with like the redevelopment rated communities program, like I mentioned, the fellowship program at CEDAM. So we're not making this up out of whole
Thin
cloth
hair.
here.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. There's
but
some
so
tested strategies here, but first time you put it together in this way.
first time we put it together this way, and what we hope to see is that um, communities are getting ahead of potential challenges and having new tactics and approaches to their really diversifying. So if you're really reliant on energy facility or a
Hmm.
specific manufacturer, can we help you on the journey to be more resilient, more adaptable, more diverse, and that becomes more of a core tenet of the way we do economic development in every community. That would be the ultimate victory. Would be this doesn't need to be its own program because it is just part of the kind of like placemaking has become, I think, in many places in Michigan. It was an add-on, I think, when
Hmm.
um, the league and others first started talking about it 20 years ago, but now it's just assumed that that is part of your economic development strategy in communities,
Yeah.
at least in
And I
Michigan.
think it's so interesting just knowing you and sort of your career trajectory and what you started off here at the league and how elements of that and pieces of that and the placemaking work, the place plans that we did so many years ago are sort of having these echoes now to help communities stay resilient. So I think that's really impressive and a really interesting thing to see, certainly for your career, but also for the work that you're still doing for Michigan communities. So um, that's really exciting. And I can't wait to see what comes out of that and how it continues to grow and change. Um, so anyway,
Nice of you to
that's just
say.
cool.
Thank you. No,
Yeah, yeah,
nice of you to say. I'm glad you see that, and I do think this all goes together
yeah.
in many ways. And these things take a long time. That's the thing I learned from the place
Hmm.
plans, right? Like we're still seeing, just drove through downtown Cadillac and I saw stuff that was talked about, I don't know how many years ago, 12 to
A long
15,
time ago. Yeah,
and
yeah.
that is coming to fruition now. A lot of that's dedicated leadership locally, but a lot of that is just these
Hmm.
things are hard and they take time, and especially a recession, sets you back 5 years sometimes, but you
Yep.
see a lot of the stuff coming to reality now in communities that's been talked about for over a decade. So I'm patient when it
Yes,
comes to this.
absolutely. Patient and that's some real stick-to-itiveness, which I think is incredibly impressive and interesting as you're continuing to sort of tinker with it and see what works best and make changes as things sort of adapt and follow. And I think the reason why I bring that up is, yeah, it's a new program and but we're borrowing elements from other programs, it sounds like. And also for any of our folks who are joining us who didn't know you and have come into being members of the league or being in local government since your time at the league, that you have such a track record of doing this stuff for Michigan communities. And you can see a lot of that echoed throughout lots of places in Michigan, which is really cool. And I think you should be proud. So the application's open now. Can you walk us through the timeline and what folks can expect if they're selected? What kind of time commitment is this looking like?
Oh, great question. Yeah, so we'll have monthly meetings of the academy, which, like again, will be up to 10 communities across the state. That'll start in October. So you have about a month from now to apply. As I said, we already got 9 applications this morning, so uh,
Amazing.
it's a pretty light touch application that was
Mhm.
intentional. Um, I would advise people to, like I said earlier, spend a little time thinking about who the team is. That's worth an extra week or something. If you need to make a phone call and say, hey, so and so with the community foundation, do you want to be in on this proposal? All it takes is, all it means is you're committing to monthly cohort meetings. There will be once a month starting in October through the spring. That'll be the real intensive upfront. You'll be giving us feedback on draft documents that we have, and you'll be getting dedicated trainings from our consultants and contractors during that time. You'll also be participating in a hiring process, if you choose to do that, to hire your full-time community fellow. That'll be a full-time person placed in the lead organization for up to 15 months. Looking at that starting in January and running through the following spring. So this is really like an 18-month commitment that we're talking about, starting in October, running through the spring of the following of 2027.
Sure.
So it's not a snap and you're over with it sort of thing. But like we talked about, these things take some dedication. So
some time.
You got about a month, and then I think the time commitment will be well worth it.
Absolutely. And I might have missed this, but how many communities are you anticipating to select?
We're saying up to 10.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully we get more than 10 great applications, and we'll be picking 10. It could be smaller if for some reason there were only 8 really great applications. We could go with that too.
Awesome. Well, I cannot wait to see how this grows and what we learn from it. It's been great chatting with you and seeing you again and reconnecting on all things local government, placemaking, economic development, all of that. We have posted information in the chat. If you are interested in the application, we've got the direct link to that, more info on the program. Luke Forrest, thanks so much for joining us today. We really appreciate having you.
Thanks, Emily.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to transition right over to our state and federal affairs update. Joining us, Jen Rigtrink. Dave's not joining us today. I had that part wrong.
That was my fault.
I think Jen can, that's all right. Jen, you can handle it today. Jen, I want to start with just a very general legislative update. Where are we in the state budget process, and what's happening that our members should have on their radar right now?
Yeah, thanks, Emily. Dave, he could have been here, but he really didn't want to put a collared shirt on, so I told him I would handle it. Just kidding, Dave. Well, legislatively, there's not been a whole lot of progress, if any, since kind of the last time we checked in here about a month ago. There are some Senate committees that are posting for this week, and then we're hearing the House will be back in hopefully next week. As of right now, it sounds like they're scheduled to be back in session. There's a lot of growing pressure about getting the budget done, since we're 5 weeks in for, K through 12, universities, local governments, even some of the state departments that have programs that have a fiscal year that run July 1st. There's been some back and forth in the media if folks are paying attention to that stuff. We've heard from the speaker a call for the triangle to meet, really wanting the speaker, the Senate majority leader, and the governor to sit down and actually be the ones that hash out the budget. As folks know, usually that includes props, chairs, things like that. And so we think the triangle's a play on the quadrant. In the quadrant, when they meet, it's usually the leaders, both majority and minority in both chambers, meet with the governor. So we also know that we're going to probably see some changes to the budget, even the one the Senate already passed, because of impacts from the federal budget. Our members may have seen the Citizens Research Council put out a study last week that says in the first year, the federal budget could have an impact of hitting our state budget over $1 billion. That's a huge number. So what we can expect changes day to day. It could, whatever I say now could be different tomorrow, because things are definitely very fluid. But we may see another consensus revenue estimating conference because that's really where the numbers, the state treasurer in both the House and Senate fiscal agencies have agreed on a set of numbers. So I think that would be very helpful if they did call for another CREC, so that
Mhm.
both chambers as well as the administration are all working off of the same budget numbers. So hopefully, that comes around. The other thing that I can update our members on is that this is the fewest in the history of the state legislature. This is the fewest number of public acts that have been passed by July 15th in the
Wow.
first year of a session. There have been 6, and the 6 that were passed really were things that they had to do and get done, like minimum wage and the earned sick time. There was a bill about school attendance, minimum days of instruction, dealing with the freeze, the storms that we had up north at the end of the school year. Just to give a couple of stats that we had looked up from, let's see, there's usually an average from 1941 to 2024 of 182 public acts signed that have gone through the legislative process and the governor has
By
signed
this time.
by this time. And even
Wow.
in 1942 to 1950, there were 5 abbreviated years where they only met every other year. And there was still an average of 43 public acts in those 5 abbreviated years. So, we're hearing mixed reviews of that from some folks saying it's complete
Yeah.
dysfunction to some legislators saying it's great. We shouldn't be passing a lot of, public acts right now. We should be, government staying out of things. So that's kind of where we're at legislatively, and what's been going on in Lansing, or what's not been going on in Lansing.
Sure. Depending on how you look at it. Really
Yeah.
interesting sort of to take a step back and observe, particularly with those data points that you shared. With what has been going on or what hasn't been going on, the state and federal affairs team has been very busy traveling across the state. I know that there have been a lot of places on the road. We've been Michigan Municipal Executives, the Managers Conference, I should say, the BLAC Leadership Advisory Council, or President's Gathering in Southeast Michigan, Michigan Association of Mayors. Summer is kind of a busy time to be on the road, and for our team from an advocacy perspective to be requested to come and give updates. So you want to share a few highlights of that with us?
Yeah, so the team's been busy traveling, giving legislative updates, meeting with members. Our board president was, like you said, down in Southeast Michigan a week ago, spent some time in Sterling Heights, in Monroe, and Detroit before going to the Mayors Association's summer event. So we had some great times spending with the mayors, with the municipal executives, kind of just what we're doing here right now, going over what is or isn't happening, what we expect, and then diving into issues when we have questions from those particular groups, like the mayors really wanted to talk about the Open Meetings Act. And while the Open Meetings Act is not one of the in the priority document for the state and federal affairs team, it's still a priority that we work on. And so it was good to reconnect and let folks know, yes, we have the priority document. Those are our big, big ticket issues, but we're definitely still engaged in working on OMA and FOIA and public notices and the disabled vets property tax exemption and all the other tax exemptions that are out there. So,
And what would you say were, aside from the Open Meetings Act, I know that came up at MAM, what would you say were some of the key themes or issues you heard from members at these events? Any threads that you could connect between them?
well, definitely in talking about the budget and what could happen with the federal impacts, the need for the revenue sharing trust fund. We heard everywhere to be able that revenue sharing can't be that ping pong ball, you know, on the negotiating table and not to be there to
Absolutely.
backfill other things. So the need to be able to lock those dollars in and give some predictability to locals, as well as, you know, knowing what you're going to get. Even if the budget hasn't been passed, because that revenue sharing trust fund, again, is a mechanism to lock those dollars in. It could still be increased or decreased. It just wouldn't be part of the appropriation process.
Sure.
So, yeah, we heard, you know,
Well,
things around the public safety, like I said,
mhm.
Open Meetings Act, some of the environmental issues, preemption. We talked a ton, I think every
Yeah,
place, about housing, and possible the zoning preemption on housing, which we are hearing should or will be introduced. As of right now, we're being
sure.
told at the end of this month, in the House. And so it could be part of a really big package and trying to kind of be buried in there versus on its own. So we're anticipating that something's happening. And, you know, the league has been tirelessly working on kind of a proactive approach on this, which we'll soon here going to be sharing with members, and are super excited to roll that out with everyone.
Yeah. And how would you say, just talking a little bit about the internal workings of that, how does this on the ground feedback help shape our advocacy priorities here at the league going forward?
Yeah. Well, one, it makes sure that we're still, it's a check, you know, kind of a check-in for us as the
Yeah,
team to make sure that we are spending the time on things that are indeed important to the members. And if there's something we haven't heard about or haven't, while we were at, the Mayor's Association, we had a mayor come up and ask about a particular item dealing with public safety funding. And so, you know, we were able to check in on some of that and get back to that mayor pretty quick. So it's also just that one-on-one relationship building and those one-off
sure.
things that we can help try and answer, or, you know, shepherd a direction to get an answer. So it's very important, because our members are the ones we're calling on, you know,
Hmm.
when we need action, whether to
Right.
support or oppose. So we need them to know that we're on it, and also those personal relationships are so important, so that we can call on, you know, our members to get in touch with their legislators when we need them to.
Definitely. Definitely. And I'll just mention too, if you aren't signed up for Inside 208 and keeping tabs on what's happening from an advocacy perspective, this is a good time to sign up because things are moving and changing quite frequently. So having those updates from our state and federal affairs team where we can get directly into your inbox is incredibly useful. So you might want to check that out as things continue to progress or not progress, depending again on how you look at it.
Move
Um,
forward.
yeah, move forward. Yes, yes. Well, thanks, Jen. I appreciate the insights and context. A
Looks like
couple
we
of,
have a question,
oh,
maybe.
we do. Okay, let's see. All right. Based on current understanding, could you provide a broad overview of the zoning preemption proposal?
Yeah. So, from our understanding, we're anticipating the four bills from lame duck last year that dealt with parking, site plan approval or site plan application, um, zoning petitions, and what was the last one? Oh, duplexes by right in all
Hmm.
residential zones. Um, we know those four are coming back. If they have changes, we're not aware. The league and other local government groups have not been engaged this term so far to have a seat at the table and talk about those things. But we also anticipate that package to be expanded to include dwelling sizes, lot sizes, accessory dwelling units, you know, and other things that they've been doing in other states. Again, not having seen any draft bills, that's what we're anticipating. And then we're
Hmm.
anticipating some regulatory reforms at the state level. There's been a lot of talk around single staircase and some other things that are regulated at the state level, not at the local level. So until we see those bills, that's as much information as we have to
That's
go
what
on
we
right
know.
now. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Jen.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the insight and the context
Yeah.
for our members. Again, Inside Out, that link, I think Betsy's posted that in the chat in case you want to give subscribe there. And before we officially wrap up, we do have a few quick reminders for everyone. Convention 2025 will be in Grand Rapids, September 17th through 19th at the Amway Grand Plaza. So you'll want to make sure that you register and you don't miss your chance to connect with municipal leaders, hear from inspiring speakers, and bring new awesome ideas back to your community. In addition to that, we've got an upcoming webinar, ADA accessibility requirements for websites, mobile apps, and social media. That is taking place next Tuesday, August 19th at noon. Learn what's required under the new DOJ rules and how to prepare for April 2026 and 27 compliance deadlines. Check the chat or events calendar on the League website for the registration link. And also, our on-demand learning platform is live. Access online learning courses anytime on topics like ethics, lobbying, and local government finance at my.mml.org. You can learn at your pace 24/7. Thanks again for tuning in. We do have a great show coming up on August 25th. We'll be on the road. Stay tuned to see where we're at. We'll see you next time on Live with the League. Have a great week.